Hey, welcome to the Rescue Lab podcast. This is the Field Notes edition. We got Hank from Hasty Fire Products here with us. Hank, super cool to meet up with you today. We just randomly connected on Instagram, and I think we started chatting all things firefighter businesses. We're just doing some talking here about the Hasty Strap and some different uses, some different implications. But I appreciate you coming on today. This section we love to highlight firefighter made businesses and do we can to get those names out. But dude, Hasty Strap is everywhere. I don't think it takes me to tell people about it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you though, and how you got started in the fire service? Tell us about Hank.
Sure. So I am 37 years old, so starting to get up there and feel it too, man. I'll tell you.
Dude, I'm 42. I'll be 42.
Yeah. So I started in the fire service about 18 years ago. It was a little bit right after high school, and I ended up kind of your typical, kind of lost after high school, not really sure what I'm getting into. Knew college wasn't for me. Started working, some blue collar jobs and stuff. And I had some friends who were in the local volunteer fire department, and they kind of convinced me to join. And it was one of those things where it was like after my first or second time of being in the building, I was hooked,
Yep.
And it hasn't gone away since. Not at all, man.
That's awesome.
Still can't get enough. So yeah, that was about 18 years ago. And 10 years ago, I got hired in Frederick County, Maryland. So got on the career job there.
Nice.
And I'm currently a lieutenant, which is the first level company officer. And I float in our 3rd battalion.
What exposed you, to firefighter rescue and RIT operations?
So I'm also a fire instructor. So I teach at our academy.
Okay.
And our academy had a pretty intense safety and survival / RIT program when I went through recruit school. And then as I became an instructor, I showed interest in that program. I really liked it. And then I took it over when I became an instructor. So I've been leading. I've been leading that. Yeah. I've been leading that for the last, I can't even remember. It's 12 or 13 of our recruit classes. So yeah, we're about to start another one, and I got the okay to lead that one too. Just the safety and survival program.
Yeah, but I mean that positions you in a great spot to see. Did you keep seeing recurring problems that you were kind of left scratching your head, like why is this a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Now in our recruit school, we teach like bare bones, as basic as we can get. Basically, no tools, not no tools, but like nothing extra in your pockets, right? It's what you came in the building with. So we teach the waste belt conversion from the SCBA as like our basic, bare minimum type of packaging, if it's not just a quick grab and go, right? But anybody who's done it and tried to do it under stress, it can definitely be difficult, especially on larger people.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. And was there a specific moment that you remember that sparked the idea for the Hasty Rescue Strap, or what was it that sort of bridged that gap?
Yeah. It's like two kind of separate but related events, right? So
yeah,
the first one's a little more somber, I guess. We experienced a line of duty death in our department. Captain Josh Laird, he was killed in a basement fire, fell through the floor, was stuck in the basement. It was long story short, we can get into this one for hours, but it was a massive, massive house. So anybody who's not familiar with it, it's the Ball Road incident. Massive house, giant basement, and it was a really hard time locating him, right? By the time there was multiple attempts. There was an attempt through the hole that wasn't working out because of the amount of fire. There was an attempt on the first floor to locate the stairs, which was proving to be very difficult. And then when they finally found a basement access from the outside, which wasn't apparent when they arrived, they had to transverse the entire length of the house to get to him. And then by the time they got to him, he was already unconscious. And not sure if he didn't wear his waist belt or if it was already undone, what the case was. But when they got to him, they couldn't find his waist belt itself to make a conversion. And Josh was a bigger dude, so they definitely needed something, sturdy to grab onto. Yeah. So trying to take him the whole way across this house and then back upstairs proved to be very difficult, and in legitimately zero visibility and extremely stressful, high heat conditions, stuff like that. It was not working. They could not get the waist belt completed, and they couldn't get the DRD deployed. So they attempted both. Just
worst case scenario.
Yeah. So, it wasn't exactly developed, for that, but it just got me thinking, these are my friends that were hands-on with Josh that made this rescue or removal, whatever. And just, it didn't sit right with me that the bare bones basic thing we trained on all the time wasn't working or didn't work in that scenario. Right.
Yeah. And how do you
So
think, just to jump in there, I mean, you're teaching this stuff, you're seeing this done on the at the should be how it's done side at the academy, but then you're actually seeing it play out, in real life. How did you feel going back to the academy and having to teach that, seeing that, hey guys, this is how it's done, and knowing that it didn't work out in that situation?
yeah, I'll tell you, man, it was tough. It was a hard one for me. It was a hard pill for me to swallow. I wasn't directly involved in the incident. I was off duty that day, but
Still, that's life changing.
it is, and it's, like I said, we're a fairly big department. I think at the time we were almost 500 people, but I came in at a time when we were about 200. And then, with me teaching at the academy all the time, and I'm very involved, like I know everybody, right? So like, it's kind of a gut punch, like, hey, these are some of the skills I teach.
Yeah.
I've even been involved in some of our departmental in-service trainings and stuff. And usually, I mean, I kind of cover everything or assist with everything, but the RIT stuff has always kind of been my niche. So it definitely did not sit well with me. So, that gets the fireman's mind moving of, what can we do better?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, in a lighten the mood, I love the part that it started on a beer coaster, and I think all good things start
yeah.
on beer. I'm pretty sure if we look back in history, the Wright brothers, this flying machine started on a beer coaster in some tavern somewhere.
Yeah.
So what was that story? How did that come together?
So that's actually the second part.
Okay.
That was kind of out of nowhere, right? So let me give you a little bit more of a background here.
Yeah.
Not only do I teach for our academy, but I do teach with some training groups too. So I'm an instructor with Capital Fire Training, and I also help about once a year with the Bears of the Oath
Okay.
group down in Georgia. So traveling the country and being involved in different trainings, I see a lot of different techniques, right? And one of the big ones, especially with the guys down south, is the pickoff strap, right? So your rope rescue pickoff strap, people are using in RIT to make packaging easier.
Yeah.
The downside to that is most of the time, they're pretty thick or they're not quite long enough. Like it's a great quick packaging tool, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And so I was sitting at a brewery with two other guys that are on the job with me, two of my best friends. One of them's a firefighter, another instructor with me, and then the other one's one of our battalion chiefs. And we were kind of just talking about it, like pick off straps and stuff like that. And then the idea of making it out of webbing so it's a smaller profile, making it longer so that it's easier to find attachment points, and then putting handles on it. It's like, I don't think anybody's doing this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were sitting there drinking for quite some time that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I flipped the coaster over, and I started drawing it. And then, like I said, don't judge me.
That's
If
the first
you guys
drawing?
are watching, you can see it. Yeah, this is it.
That's
So
awesome.
I definitely kept it.
Yeah. Well,
because
now
I
what's
had
the
a few
X,
drinks.
What's the X through that one?
Yeah. So because I had a few drinks, I didn't like the first one. So I crossed it out and drew it again.
Now,
And it ended
now,
up
was
being the
that-
same. So same exact
gonna say,
drawing, but yeah.
was that at the same sitting that you just decided, I'm going to redo this, and it's the same one?
Yeah. Yep.
That's perfect. That's even better,
Yeah.
man. That
Yeah.
thing needs to be in a glass case. That's a national treasure. That's
I should frame it. It's been sitting on my desk ever since, but I should put it up on the wall.
that's going to be in the Smithsonian one day. So we gotta save that. So when you actually took it from that, there must have been iterations of what this thing looked like. What did that first strap look like?
Yeah. The very first one, I wish I had a picture of it. I think I posted a picture of it on Instagram a couple months ago, but the very first one I put together with Scotch tape, like regular, like gift wrap tape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had,
is that
I went and I bought,
NFPA approved?
Yeah, I don't think so. So I went and bought some webbing and tried out different lengths and stuff. And I was taping them together to kind of get the idea or the proof of concept, whatever you want to call it, and tried to use it. And of course, the tape doesn't hold up, but it worked well enough that like, okay, cool. I think this idea might work.
Yeah.
So from there, I went and I borrowed a sewing machine from my grandmother.
Nice.
And didn't know how to use one. So I had to YouTube how to figure it out. Right. And I made a couple different versions on my kitchen table.
Yeah.
Different lengths and things like that. So.
And how long did that process take you to actually get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm here?
It really wasn't that long. Like from the drawing to that point was maybe a week or two. Like,
okay.
I mean, I had the idea and I was set. Like I want to go do this. I want to make it happen. So I was doing this stuff pretty quick. Now, for what it's worth, me sewing them together was junk, right? Like I
Yeah.
it was
Not
just good
not
enough.
grandma approved.
Yeah, it was just good enough to take my idea to an actual industrial sewing company, and hey, can you make this? But you know, heavy duty stitching and things
Yeah.
like that. So yeah.
And I mean, that the process just getting to that point, what have you learned along on that route? What were some of the failures that you almost set you back that you overcame and continued on with? Obviously, besides the stitching, the mediocre stitching.
Yeah, I really lucked out finding a local manufacturer. So I think trying to get something that is legit that you can put out there for people, that can probably be a pretty tough part. But the other one is, if you have an idea of something that you want to make, don't how do I want to say it? Don't be discouraged, I guess, when like your first iteration isn't quite it.
Yeah.
Just kind of keep thinking and keep making changes until you find what's actually going to work. So I probably went through 6, 7, maybe 8 different versions of it before I settled on the final one. And each time I thought it was the final version, right? And it wasn't. So the other thing is, you definitely want to do some testing, right? So, and not just testing in your own firehouse. So make a few, send them to your buddies, send them to people, send one to me. I don't care, right? Like
Yeah.
I'll whoever, and take feedback and be able to take the criticism.
Of course.
With don't let it hurt your ego if people suggest changes, right?
Of course. Of
Because
course.
a lot of what's actually on there wasn't even my idea from the start. And in addition to that, some of the techniques that we teach with it, I didn't even come up with, right? Other people did.
Yeah.
So
I think that's one of the coolest things that comes out of stuff like that, though, is just seeing how other people sort of take your product and make it their own in a certain way. There must be, when you see that, you must be like, wow, I didn't think about that, but that must bring some pride, in what you're doing. At any point during the process, did you think it wasn't going to work, or did you just have that belief right up front? You were just like, hey, we're ready. This thing's I got this.
always thought it had a chance, right? I was never down on myself about it. Now, more recently, sometimes I think like, man, I don't know. This is because it's a lot of work to try to run a business and keep up with everything, right? And like,
Of
so
course.
right now I'm fighting supply chain issues. I can't get carabiners for 6 to 8 months, at least the kinds that I want to use on the strap.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a challenge and a struggle. But think if it's something that you believe in, you just like anything else, just keep pushing, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I can't quit my fire department job and do this full time,
Yeah.
at least yet. I don't ever really plan on doing that, but
It's a nice thought.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. No,
I don't know. I always want to be a fireman, so I don't think I could just not do that. But
No, I think that's just something that's ingrained in all of us, and in that. But I think that also brings a realness to the product, and that's people see you behind it, and that's what is a driving factor of that too.
yeah,
And
just let it be a slow drip. Like don't try to force it and make it happen right now. Just let it
yeah,
happen organically, naturally.
yeah,
Make your small changes as you go.
yeah. No, I think those are valuable words to people, because obviously firefighters every day are sitting at the table. Someone's got some idea, some business idea. 99% of them, sort of fizzle out by dinner time. But that 1%, that's, stick with it and grind it out. And then we talk about in training, we talk about that in all things fire service. But let's go back to the fire rescue side. Some of the bigger challenges that you saw when packaging a downed firefighter. What was it again that was behind the Hasty Strap? You talked about the conversion of the SCBA. I mean, this has been the standard for how long?
Yeah, I mean it definitely since before I came on the job.
Yeah, I mean, do you think they were taking the harnesses of the horses and putting them between the legs and dragging them out of off the streets and stuff? I mean,
Yeah, I have no
what
idea,
what
but
what do you train, or what do you see in the training of recruits, or at the school, or even in your other jobs? What are the biggest problems that a firefighter down brings to a fire service on the fire scene?
there's no easy way to go about it, right? Just like a civilian victim, they are dead weight, but they usually weigh more, with the gear, or there's more friction on the floor. And then on top of it, there's the added stress that it's, a firefighter. It's just, there's nothing about it that is clean, pretty, or easy, right? So it's gritty and dirty.
And I think that's, you talk about, if we talk about skills that we know, but they break down under stress. And I think, knowing that person, and when that mayday gets called over the radio, that level of stress just skyrockets. And, people start to not lose their minds, but things sort of, they get wiry.
Yeah. Yeah. Irrational decisions get made.
Yes, exactly.
I think that can be mitigated for the most part, but it takes a lot of training and a lot of stressful training.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean like super unrealistic or unobtainable skills, but just, it's like anything else. You have to train on it a lot to become proficient, including the stress inoculation, right? So,
Yeah.
and it's never going to be as realistic as the real thing, but there are things you can do to get yourself used to working under stress. And
what are some of those that you suggest or that you guys do on the training side? Because we talk about it on the tech rescue side, the USTAR side, but anything, even in the business world, making decisions under stress, companies spend billions of dollars trying to solve this problem. So what is it you guys, or you recommend, or your group teaches to say, let's take a minute and work through this problem?
yeah, I think first and foremost, it's reps, right? It's you have to practice doing things stressed out. So a couple of the things we do in my class, we spend a little bit of a portion talking about stress and the physiological changes it does to your body and your brain, and how you react to stress, and then how you can control it, which, long story short, the easiest way to control it is to control your breathing, right? If you control your breathing, you can somewhat control your heart rate. And as long as you can keep your heart rate below a certain threshold and your breathing below a certain threshold, you kind of don't go, we call it over the curve, into the blackout zone where you start making those irrational decisions. So
Yeah.
that's the big one, right? Is definitely breathing and heart rate.
I think recognizing those signs and symptoms too. I think that's something that if you can recognize, like, hey, like I'm starting to climb that curve, like I need to take that second and control my breathing.
100%. And recognizing it in whoever you're working with as well. Like, sometimes you have to grab somebody and tell them that they need to chill out. Like, hey man, like, take a second, take a breath, chill out, because we have work to do, and you're not helping right now.
Yeah, I've actually had to do that. We were mixing some Dahlgren at a fentanyl case, and one of my guys, love him to death, but he was just being out of his mind crazy. And I looked up at him, and this was the second batch we were trying to make because he screwed up the first one. I said, dude, take a walk. You got to leave us alone.
Yeah.
But no, that's knowing your people too. I think that's for the commander side too. You have to know who's on the fire ground, who you can turn to in that moment to sort of regain control or take that. If you could fix, one thing or one way that fire departments train firefighter rescue, besides putting a Hasty strap in everyone's pocket, what would it be?
That's a really good question.
I'm known for them.
Yeah, I think I was just talking about making things stressful, which I do think is super important.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, when it comes to RIT training, they try to overdo it, right? It's too hard. There's too many variables, and it's, with most things, if you master the basics, then you can start throwing little pieces of the harder stuff at it. But I think too many times, like, you try to build a RIT drill, whether it's in the apparatus bay or in your training building, and you just throw everything at them all at once without building up to it.
Yeah.
And they're unsuccessful. Not all the time, right? But most of the time they're unsuccessful.
Yeah, you're inviting failure.
You're inviting failure. But the other thing that does is it kills somebody's confidence too, right? So if you are not confident that you can operate at a similar type of incident or scenario, whatever, then, God forbid you ever have to do that, actually, like, that's the only thing you're going to think about, right? So whenever we're training anything, there needs to be a clear goal and it needs to be obtainable. And then once you master the easier ways of doing it, then you start throwing in extra challenges or whatever to make it a little bit harder. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it's the crawl, walk, run sort of mindset, and that's how you build that. That's exactly how you build that strength and, I guess, capability to do that job under those conditions. I just wanted to touch on RIT operations on the fire ground. How does your fire department, even your region, you show up at a structure fire, what does that RIT scene look like? What does that staging area look like?
Cool. That's another good one. So my department is pretty SOP driven, and I'm a big fan of that. So we have a dedicated RIT company at every structure fire from dispatch. So for us, it is the fifth due engine. So we added a fifth engine to every structure fire response, and that is going to be the initial RIT company. Now you can put that anywhere. You can argue, where in the response that company should be. we chose to make that our last arriving engine is going to be our initial RIT team. And they are tasked with pretty much setting up the staging area. So grabbing any tool that they think may be necessary with a bare minimum of being a RIT pack.
Yeah.
Right. Some hand tools, some saws, some ropes. And then from there, we can build out some more. Now, once the first unit arrives, and if they confirm that it is a working incident, they're supposed to ask for the rapid intervention dispatch, which gets you another engine company and another special service, usually a rescue squad or a ladder truck. And those two companies coming with on that dispatch are to meet up with that fifth due engine, and that builds out your full RIT team. So that gives you your minimum of 12.
Okay.
Multiple thermal imagers, multiple RIT packs, all the tools.
Now,
so,
at every fire, is this happening at your department? Do you see
for the
this
most
happening?
part, yeah. It's like if it's a working incident, if we show up and it is a very nickel and dime fire, sometimes out of habit they just call for the rapid intervention dispatch, but sometimes they say, hey, it's not really needed. Like, this fire is going to be out in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
So
I get you. And
Yep.
I only ask that because, I know there's people out there at departments that, departments say they do RIT and they bring the RIT pack to the front of the building, but then, the team gets kind of antsy and they sort of end up inside and they're helping in operations. Coming from the your background, your department, and experiencing the loss that you guys did, what do you say to those departments that have RIT in place but really don't have that sort of backing?
Yeah, well, the fire service is very reactive, right? So we were not the best at it before the incident, and it definitely changed a lot of how we do business as far as structured fires and RIT. Now, we're still a very aggressive department. We're still expected to go inside and put the fire out, but we are more diligent with RIT.
Yeah.
We
And
have a whole policy on it now. So
yeah, and I only ask that too because as a young officer, I remember being on one of the ladder trucks that was assigned RIT. I'm outside the building. It wasn't anything big, and I had a couple older, more senior guys that were like, "I'm not standing around doing RIT." And I'm like, I'm not going to fight with you in the fire ground right here. We're trying to do RIT, and like they end up going inside. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And I know that there's other people that are put in those situations on a daily basis, probably around the country. I mean,
there are, for sure.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, man. Like, I love the skills and I love teaching it and, practicing it, training with it, everything. But at the fire ground, that is pretty much the last thing that I want to do,
It's the last thing everyone wants to do.
But, at the same time, if there is, I hope there never is again, but if there is another incident, like, I hope I am on the RIT team, because I do feel like I've prepared for it and I try to prepare my people for it. So, but part of our program, we teach, like, don't get in that mindset of RIT sucking. Like, it doesn't have to suck. There's a lot of things we can do. So our department has been pretty good at being proactive RIT, right? So
Yeah.
Basically, if it doesn't exhaust you or doesn't require you to put on your mask and enter the IDLH, we're allowed to do it. So that can be.
And how have you found that rolled out? Is there a lot of acceptance to that, and people generally respond better to that?
Sometimes it's begrudgingly, nobody really wants the assignment, but there's definitely very little to no freelancing in our department. Like, we are pretty disciplined, and that's something I can be pretty proud to say. But there's all kinds of things we can do. So we help the ladder companies put the rest of the ladders up. It's small things, but our tremendous help is like chasing kinks.
Yeah.
Everybody gets focused on what they're doing, and you see these hose lines that are kinked up. Like, go fix that before it becomes a problem. We're constantly, every couple of minutes, we're sending a separate member of the crew around doing, a 360, checking on conditions and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Just getting different eyes on things to figure out if there's any hazards and stuff like that. So, and then usually once the fire's either out or, towards the end stages, they'll start to rotate. So you'll get some work. It's not always the best work, but you're not going to stand there and do nothing the entire time. So a lot of times they'll get rotated in, and then new crews will come in to fill the RIT.
Yeah. And I always found, I think there is a crossover. Obviously I'm a big tech rescue nerd, whatever, but I believe there is a crossover between RIT and tech rescue in sort of the training and mindset thing, that it doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, things can go bad very fast. And you become that specialized team, whether you're ready or not, and the outcome of what comes next is based off your training and what you put into that. And I like that nexus. Let's go back to the Hasty Strap, though. You talked about some of the earlier, testing of it. How did you test it before you brought it to the market? What were some of the things that you guys did I assume in-house, or how did it roll out?
Yeah, pretty much everything was in-house or, with traveling with capital, basically. So my main focus in the beginning was making sure that the design was the way I wanted it, that it was going to work out the way I wanted it to work out, right? So the overall intention has been for it to be carried in your pocket. So a lot of people don't. They put them in the RIT packs or with their RIT tools, whatever, which is fine. But the overall intent was something that can be in your pocket so that when your bare bones basic isn't working, you can pull it out and make it happen, right? So I wanted to make sure that it could fit in the pocket, but also fit on any fireman that we need to put it on. I haven't found one yet that it doesn't fit on. So we've messed with some large dudes.
Is that the Hasty Strap challenge? You're looking for the
Yeah, sure.
the
Yep.
unstrappable?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, I like that. What was some of the early feedback you got, and what of that had the biggest impact on your final design?
A lot of it was figuring out how to keep it in your pockets, right? So we've come up with some other things, other products that could go with it. But that was probably the biggest challenge in the start, was storing it so that it'll deploy without coming out tangled up or whatever, or being able to find the right components. And then kind of part of that, being able to find the right components. Like I have one here somewhere. One of my first prototypes didn't have the reflective striping on it, right? It was still, most of them are an orange strap. There are some color variations for special occasions, but
I think I got it here on the camera, on the other camera. So you could, this is definitely high vis on the hand strap side.
Yep. So initially it didn't have the silver reflective striping. It was just the orange strap and the yellow handle. And that was one of the feedbacks we got was, if we could find a way to really differentiate the handles. So that's when we added the reflective striping, and then that seemed to be very well received. So, yeah.
Were there any assumptions that you had about the strap early on that proved different upon training?
Yes. So when you use this strap, you can go to any attachment point that you can find, right? And with the pick-off straps, usually we're going to the parachute buckle or adjustment buckle, right? The buckle itself on your shoulder strap. But one of the things that I found with messing with those, or when the strap was shorter, was that can be really hard to find, especially if that fireman's laying, like if he's laying on this side, he's kind of tucked up under the buckle. It's a specific spot to find, right? So you can absolutely go to it, but I wanted to be able to come up, you feel the head, shoulders, grab the strap and attach it up high.
Yeah.
So I got used to the packs that we were wearing, which were the Scots with the regulator disconnect, right?
Yep.
So it's no problem to connect it up high. When you cinch it down, it falls to that disconnect and doesn't pass it, and it sits right there. It's perfect. It's good to go.
Yeah.
But going around and training, like MSAs don't have those disconnects.
Yep.
And then some of these departments we would go to that have older air packs, like they don't have them. So it's like, can't really do that because you can't capture that air hose. Because if you do, when you cinch it, you're pulling the face piece off. If you go around the strap and not the air hose, then it falls way down under the armpit. So, in those cases, you may have to go to the buckle. But that was something that like I thought was dialed in. And then like not everybody uses the same equipment as us. So, trying to figure out different techniques for that was an unforeseen challenge.
And how have you overcome that?
It's basically that, like, you can go to any attachment point that you need to. The biggest thing is don't capture the air hose unless there's a disconnect and you go above it. Because if you rip their face piece off during the drag or during the hoist, then you kind of defeat the whole purpose of what we're trying to do.
It was all for naught.
Yeah.
So you talked about being a firefighter, and obviously we lead busy lives. You're trying to run this business outside of there. What was one of the biggest challenges during the time you're building this out, from the idea to actually turning it into a product?
So for me, it was money. I didn't have a bunch of money that I could dedicate to starting up. So I mean, I did, use some personal money to get everything started. That was my biggest challenge. Even still to this day, like when I go and have a batch of straps made, I have to buy all the material and pay all the labor up front. Right now, of course I make it back and then make enough money to keep making another batch. But I have, at the very beginning, before I built up any money in the business account, like that was a very hard thing to do, was figuring out what to buy and when, because that was a lot that I just didn't have. I didn't have it in my personal accounts available to use for the business. I'll put it that way.
Now, did you have any other firefighters that you could reach out to and talk to about building businesses during that time?
Yeah, a little bit. So like Capital Fire Training, the guy who owns that at RJ, I'm not sure if you know him yet.
I
He's
know
on
the
the
name.
job with me in Frederick, and he's one of my best friends. So he gave me a lot of advice as far as kind of the business side of it, and
Yeah.
then also working on the patent. So he's got a forcible entry kit, I guess you'd call it, that he's got patented. So he kind of was able to help me with that process, and then some of the business stuff.
Yeah. Well,
He
I mean,
I wouldn't be anywhere without him, man. He's done a lot for me, and he's definitely
yeah.
helped me
No, I mean,
achieve it, a lot of this. So
I think that's a super important, like anything, having that sort of mentor or someone that can help, walk you through, especially on the firefighter side. 'Cause like I said, no, I know a lot of firefighters and myself included who just step out and try and do something different. But if you had to give a piece of advice to a firefighter listening today that wanted to start their own business, it doesn't know where to start, what would you tell them?
you just have to start.
Yeah.
I think we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Like you got to believe in it, and you got to start. So don't expect it to be completely successful right away. Be okay with it taking a while to build or having some failures along the way. Like it's going to happen. It's not going to be super easy and super profitable right off the start. So,
And I think what kind of interests me is, the fire service has been around forever, right? And all these new and varied products still continue to come out, and a lot of them are firefighter driven. What do you think is behind that?
we're problem solvers. That's pretty much what we do on a daily basis. Is go to problems and try to figure out a way to solve them. So yeah, I think that's what it is. We're naturally inclined to try to fix things, and when you see something that isn't quite working the way that you want it to,
Yeah.
you make your little improvement. And that's
We might
innovation,
have
and I think it's beautiful.
gotten ourselves in that trouble spot in the first place,
Yeah.
but we're good at getting out of it. Do you think the fire service in general does or encourages innovation?
Yes, the fire
And that
service in general does.
sounds like a trick question, I think, but
I wanted to think about how I wanted to say it, because I think the fire service in general encourages it because everybody loves something new, especially when it works well or solves,
yeah,
a problem that you're having. I think the downside is people are very sandboxy, right? Like I've never been that way. I never will be. I don't get competitive with other companies, but like if you start something and it starts taking off, you are going to get some hate, some feedback from other companies who
oh,
think that you might be stealing their thunder or whatever.
that's
Or,
that's the nature of business.
it is. And like I said, it's innovation, right? That's how innovation works, is you got something that's not quite working and you improve upon it. So,
Yeah.
you know,
No, and I think that's in that same sense, with the fire service and tradition. How do you balance tradition with finding better ways to do stuff? How do we as firefighters balance that tradition yet continue to innovate?
yeah, no, I mean, you just gotta do it, like tradition's important, and you gotta always remember where you come from. But if tradition was the only thing, we'd still have horses, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
if it makes it better, you gotta be willing to accept it if it makes it better.
yeah.
And if
I think
if
that's
it's
the
not your
fire
cup of
service as a
tea,
whole.
it's not your cup of tea. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think. Well, what's next for Hasty products?
I have something really cool coming. I can't
Yeah.
exactly say what it is right now. I'll tell you when we stop recording.
Okay, that's fair. But I just want to
And
be like, when it's time, I just want to be like Dave Portnoy with Trump when he's like, "Hey, I got it that the red card's being overturned for USA,"
yeah,
and just put it out just beforehand. But
so,
that's
so
cool.
it's something I'm running through Hasty Fire Products, the company. It's maybe somewhat slightly related to the rescue strap, but it's completely different. It's more along, it's in the training realm more than anything, but it's pretty cool. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I've got some prototypes right here. Like I
Oh,
said,
nice.
as soon as we're done, I'll show it to you. In fact, I'll send you one.
Oh, man, thank you.
You can let me know
That's
what you
awesome.
think of it. So
That's part of the testing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so, and I think that's cool though. You came up with a strap, but now you have what has led you to this whole new thing that we're going to talk about after.
So this new thing just kind of came to me, and I don't want to say too much without giving it away, but it was another problem, right? So we were sitting around the firehouse. Actually, we were out of training, and yeah, we were talking about this one issue that almost every firehouse seems to have from time to time, and it's like, it, just a light bulb. So
Wait, are we talking about a better legitimate mouse trap? Because every fire station has mice, and I think if you could
yeah,
crack that nut, you'd be a billionaire.
yeah, it might be along those lines. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, look, I desperately want to hear about this. I want to thank you for talking to us here at the Rescue Lab. Thank you for sending a strap. I do have it here. So we just talked about before, we were talking about the different uses, and I want to try to play around with it on the tech rescue side, but I just wanted to touch on, the story you told me about one of the firefighters who used it in a grain silo. I thought that was pretty unique. And
Yeah.
that was the first you had heard of it.
Yeah. So I haven't put the full story out there yet because I talked to the guy and he told me what happened and he showed me a little clip, but he's supposed to get me some better footage and then I'll analyze it, and then I'll put it out there for the masses. But yeah, long story short, it was used in a grain bin rescue. So a farmer was stuck in a silo full of corn. He was there for quite a few hours, and this rescue team was actually called in as a mutual aid team, kind of hours into the incident when it wasn't working out for the initial crews. So, they call it the specialized team in. And this guy's been a big supporter, and he carries a Hasty Strap in his fire gear and carries a Hasty Strap in his little go bag. And when they realized that, like I said, I don't know the exact specifics, but I think the way that the patient or the victim was sitting, they couldn't get the LSP around him. So he said, hold up, I think I have something that might work. He pulled his Hasty Strap out and kind of fished it around, got it around the victim, and was able to attach it to the hoisting system with that, and was able to get him out pretty quick. So
yeah, that's awesome, man.
That was really cool. And then a couple months ago, I did get a confirmed civilian rescue with it too in a fire.
That's awesome.
That made just that one right there, like, cool. They actually made a save on a civilian. Even though, the whole intention was it's been able to be adapted to civilians. It saved one person, and that makes all of the stress I've ever gone through worth it. So
no, absolutely. I mean, it's cool to see the innovation from the coaster to, tech rescue and civilian side. I mean, that's awesome. What a cool product. And hey, we thank you for having on the Rescue Lab Field Notes. And I'm going to stay tuned after this. Everyone else, go check out Hank and the Hasty Strap at his website, and we'll be back. We'll be back with more info once the new product comes out. Hank, thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.